hurry. Not right now. Thank you.
We are now joined by our pole sitter for tomorrow night's race. We're here with Michael McDowell. We'll go ahead and open it up for questions. If you have one, please raise your hand and we will get a mic over to you. We'll start here with John and then go to Anthony. Steps in.
John Newby, alt driver. So, 2 front row starts at Daytona, 4 poles this season. I asked this kind of in jest. What gives? Oh, full answer. As long as you can give it.
Jamie, Steph, how are you doing? Good, good.
I can just talk loud. It's okay.
Hold on a sec. We'll get a different one. Can I give him this one? No, we've got down.
We got spares.
Hang tight.
Testing.
Oh yeah. How about now? It's a funny story actually. So qualifying has never been a strength for us at super speedways, but we've always raced really well, and so we've just always thought, it takes so much time and energy to get all these little small details just perfect to go out there and beat fenders side by side, 3 wide, and just. Is it worth all the effort? And so we just decided, okay, we are going to take as much time as we possibly have available to execute everything that we can to the best of our ability and really focus on taking our time and trying to do every detail perfect. And it was kind of an inside joke at the shop, or just one of those jokes of like, hey, if we go to Daytona for Daytona 500 and we qualify 18th, we are never, ever putting this much time and energy into another race car again. I mean, we just a massive amount of time and energy, and by everybody at Front Row. And we came down here and we qualified second, right? And we all looked at each other like, oh, you know what this means? It means we got to do this every single time. We set the bar high for ourselves, and so that just moved the bar internally. And so when we went to Atlanta and sat on the pole, I mean, obviously it's the super speedway package, but it's not like Daytona and Talladega where it's just easy flat, like we saw guys hit the wall and spin out in qualifying, right? So it's not exactly the same, but we sat on the pole there and then sort of knew going to Talladega that if we did everything well and found those fine little details that we'd have a shot at it. So I think that's the long story of it, right? Kind of shortened up is that we just proved to ourselves that with a lot of extra, and when I mean a lot of extra time, that it matters. And we just put that time in, and it's just paid off. Yeah.
We'll go to Anthony, then to Matt.
Wherever the 24 doesn't, I'm going to go.
Michael,
he's low on fuel.
First of all, how special is it to be on the front row
right
with
there
your teammates
and
to
got
lock
by
out
Tyler
the
Reddick.
front row?
So
and,
I don't think the bottom's horrible.
Turn,
I think the top was the right pick. That was where I was encouraging him to go. But
win to make
the bottom
playoffs.
works. So I just think you got to take the front row and then just see what happens.
I mean, I know you won't believe me, but there was.
So now it will be William Byron's choice as far as he'll be first to choose. But you look at the fuel. We're just kind of assuming it's not. We know it's 9 laps difference.
Well, so let's just remind everyone as they come to the choose. We saw this in Indianapolis. William Byron does have to pit coming back to the green. The line just moves up, and Reddick would become the control car. Currently, Byron front. Now it's going to be hard to pit from the top. Byron is the control car at the moment.
I'd have been excited for him. But it's just not the
and
way
he's got
right. So, but
whether it's a speedway or a restart, Brad Kay is Mr. Pusher in my mind. He's going to get a shove down into turn 1.
But
Steve, do you worry about the pickups again? You had mentioned it before. They're on the left and right side.
So this car is not as bad. The bottom of the Cup Series actually has a little bit of a V to it, so it's not just a big flat plane like the Xfinity cars were here on Saturday a couple days ago. This one, it does a much better job of filling up, so it's less of a concern. I mean, it's still a concern, but not as bad as the old style.
We haven't got to the
How about Brad
last lap
Keselowski?
and nose to tail and had a shot at trying to win the race together. But, you know, from my standpoint is the best thing that we can do for our team and for ourselves is to work together because we have fast cars. And if we can work together, and we've seen guys do it well, like the 6 and the 17 here last year, right? And they did a great job. And I think if it wasn't Chris Buescher leading that race in front of Brad would have drove that race much different that last lap. He did give himself a chance to win, but didn't ever put Chris in a situation where he wasn't going to, if that makes sense, right? And I think that's what it comes down to, is I don't want to take away a win from Todd. I want to win myself tomorrow night, but if we're in that situation, you have to play it out to where, is my move going to hurt both of us, or is it going to help one of us or both of us, right? So you don't know until you're in that situation, you know, and we haven't been there yet to know on that last lap coming off of turn 4 what we would do. But it really is situational, just like anything else, you know. So hopefully we're in that spot. Hopefully we can get to the last few laps of these races and put ourselves in position, because as you guys know, so much can happen, right? And this race in particular, there's a lot that can happen. So hopefully we get to that point to kind of feel and see what we would do.
We'll go to Matt and then down here to Lee.
Matt Weaver, Sportsnaut. On one hand, you're the Daytona 500 champion. You've had success here. On the other hand, there's like a 75% chance you're going to end up in a thing. Did you come into the tunnel feeling like excited, dread, anxiety, all of it?
Oh, no, I come here excited. That's really what helped me change my perspective and I think become a better super speedway racer, is that, you know, coming from a road course background and road racing, and, you know, it's just super speedway racing is its own thing. It's different than anything else that we do or anything else that you've ever done, you know, in your career getting to this point. And I remember the first super speedway race I did, we were 4 wide on the back straight at Talladega, and I was running probably 25th, and I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. I mean, what are we doing? You can't go anywhere. You're locked in the middle. I mean, one guy makes one wrong move, and we're all piled up in a ball. You know, like, this is not racing. I mean, that's kind of my first year. And so once I've learned to embrace it and enjoy it and become a student of it, it's really helped me. And so now I come here optimistic. And when I drive through the tunnel, I think we have a better shot than most to win this race. And I know everybody has a shot. But at the same time, if you just look, forget about the win here, just top 10s. I don't even know what the number is, but it's double digits top 10s here. And that doesn't just happen by happenstance. And so I feel like for whatever reason, this place has been good to me in that sense of feeling the pack, feeling when things are going to happen, putting yourself in a good position. And, you know, Dale Jr. always talks about, hey, you're not going to win every single one of these, but you need to be in that picture. You know, that picture they snap over the start-finish line as everybody's coming across the line 3 wide and half sideways. And I've been in a lot of those pictures. And if we continue to do that, no different than 2021, we'll have a shot at winning the race. And as you guys saw at Talladega, I mean, obviously we had a shot at winning the race, and you know, just wasn't able to make the right move there and at the end and put myself in a bad spot. So if we keep putting ourselves in that position to win, we'll get one.
So to that point, given the potential transformative nature of winning here for what that would mean to your season, like, do you carry that weight of expectation and pressure at all? For sure.
Yeah, I think, I mean, every week you feel the pressure, but there's some weeks more than others. And, you know, road courses, super speedways, we feel that more, that if we don't win or don't put ourselves in position to win, that it's a missed opportunity. But at the same time, I've been doing it long enough to know that you can't control everything, and you can't prepare for every scenario, and sometimes you get it wrong, right? And I think Talladega, I did everything right until I didn't. And the move that I did wrong was a big wrong, right? And so you learn from those things, and you adjust, and you make a game plan for the next situation, but the next situation is completely different. And so it's a constant learning and growing process, especially here at super speedways. Yeah.
We're going to go to Lee, then Claire, and then Zach.
Lee Spencer, Sirius XM NASCAR, right on CatchFence.com. Forgive me if I know I asked you this outside, but I said 17 years. I mean, to take 17 years to get that first pole, and now you have 4 of them. And you said, it's not always the car or it's not always the driver, but I'm just kind of baffled when you have a streak that's long, that goes that long.
Yeah.
I mean, what has been the difference this year?
Yeah, it's so many things, but for super speedways in particular, it's just speed. I mean, the driver, yes, I have. If I was going to give it a percentage, which I wish Brad was still in here because he's always fun to have these conversations because he's a dork. I would say the driver is, don't put I heard you type over there. Don't type that in there. 10%. Qualifying's 10%, right? Driver, 90% car. You got to hit your marks. You got to hit your shifts just right, which has come down to 10 RPMs, right? Like you get a report, and if you're 10 or 15 RPMs off, they're like, hey, you missed it. But it's all about speed, and we've had a lot of speed in our cars. Now, Gateway is different for sure. That's not a super speedway, and we got the pole there. And I don't know what the stats are, but, this year I think 10, 12 times we've made it to the second round in qualifying, not just at super speedways, but everywhere. So more than anything, our cars just have speed, and having speed is important. And then the level of execution that it takes now, too, with only 20 minutes of practice. I think that the time that I put in during the week studying and preparing has allowed us to unload really quick and put in a solid lap for qualifying. So that's been fun. Different than in years past, those other 16 years where you had 3 hours of practice and, completely different car, gear, sometimes engines. I was even been long enough to change engines between qualifying. So, everything's changed so much that it comes down to execution, and I think we've done a good job with that.
Has the Penske Alliance helped at all?
Yeah, that's a loaded, difficult question. I know it's not. Yes, I think that any time that you're able to share resources, especially with an organization like Team Penske, is huge. I don't know if it's led to our qualifying success, but I do feel like our relationship with Ford Performance and having more tools and having more, just resources in general has definitely helped the speed at Front Row, and that obviously plays into it. It's been tricky here the last couple months, but we're still managing to make speed and make it happen. Yeah.
Over here to Claire, and then over to Zach.
Claire B. Lang, it's wild because while you've been talking about the last 20 minutes, it seems like they're showing flips and crashes at Daytona. Some drivers can't concentrate when they're on the podium. They got to watch it. But it's hard to think of you watching that, especially after, what we've seen lately and the changes to the car and whatnot. What are you able to look at it and not just think, like you said earlier, what the heck are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, you don't really think about it. Obviously, you want to keep the cars on the ground, right? I know that's a big goal, but it's not the worst thing in the planet when they roll. Mm-hmm. I hate to say it like that. I don't want that to be taken out of context because we want to keep the cars on the ground, but sometimes it dissipates energy and speed as it's rolling rather than hitting something hard. I'm not technical enough to go into what's better, but, like Corey's last week was not super scary for me because of the way that it went up and came down, and it's kind of a soft roll. I know it probably didn't feel soft for him, but it didn't fly. It just went up and over, right? And so I think the car did a pretty good job with all the things that are there to keep it from flying. Mm-hmm. But at Daytona here, they've obviously paved the back straightaway, which is different from, what Ryan Priest had last year when he came across the 24-hour bus stop and then across the grass, and it kind of dug in. And if you see, too, like even at Michigan, everything was soft until they hit the grass and it dug in, right? But at the same time, when you're on the asphalt, he would have skid for a long, long time. So there's a balance there, too. So it doesn't really worry me. It doesn't scare me. I feel like these cars are really safe. And I think drivers just have this ability to block that all out. You're usually not worried about it until you're in it, and usually even that's delayed Like I've been in some bad ones where you're like, oh yeah, this is gonna hurt, and all of a sudden you realize that this is gonna hurt, but you don't think about it until you're in it.
The right side air deflector added. Will you feel that at all, or will you have to look at data next week or something to figure out?
Yeah, I mean, with how late that change came, I think there was very little information to the teams as far as what this is going to do balance-wise and all that. We got a tiny little bit of information. But even that in a wind tunnel by itself isn't a real indicator of what it'll be like in the pack. I don't think anybody knows. I mean, I think everybody's taking their best guesses, but I don't think it's going to be terribly different. But there might be some positives from it, too. So we'll see how the cars suck up, and every situation is different. And that's what's hard about super speedway racing as rule packages change. Sometimes you're 3 wide in the middle and the car responds like this. And then sometimes you're 3 wide in the middle, but 2 car lengths off of you, and all of a sudden you get something completely new and you're like, whoa, where'd that come from? And you can see that, as a fan and as a spectator, when guys are caught off guard or just lose it, it's because there's a situation that they haven't been in before. So with this deflector, I'm sure there'll be some of that, of figuring out, does it do something unique in a certain area, whether that's middle, top, bottom, behind a car, in front of a car. But I don't think it's going to be a huge change.
And were you glad they made the change?
I honestly didn't think much of it, other than, they said that this helps the takeoff speed. So obviously with last week, they're worried that we're close to that 200 number. Which we are when we're pushing hard and sucked up tight. Most of the time we're 180s and we're well under that. But when you get those massive runs and those big trains coming, you can get there. So I think it's just precaution, I think is probably the best way to describe it. I think they just took an extra measure of, hey, let's be on the good side of this just in case.
We'll go to Zach and then come down here to Jerry.
Zach Sterniolo, NASCAR.com. Michael, you've spent a lot of time at Front Row. The success, though, that you've had over the last couple of years, and especially this year, how has that, knowing that this is going to be the last year with them, and I know you're still going, bringing Travis along with you to Spire, but has it impacted your perspective on the success that you are having with this 34 group before this final third of the season wraps up?
Yeah, for sure. I think you never take it for granted, right? We come down here this weekend knowing that we're going to have a shot at the pole. And you're going to start over next year, and you're going to have to build to that. And you don't know that, And so, driving down here and just thinking about it, like, yeah, you put it in perspective of, tomorrow's not guaranteed, and success is not guaranteed. As you guys have seen my career, I spent a lot of it having very little success. So, I think it's just more of enjoying the process and in the moment, and I'm thankful that our cars have been good and we've had some strong runs. If anything, I'm disappointed about this season, because I think we've been faster and ran better than we've shown, from a point standpoint and winning races, because, just with mistakes, and some of those on me and some of those that we've just had, which you have throughout the year. But I felt like Atlanta was a race that we could have won, and Talladega obviously was a race that we put ourselves in position to win, and there's been a handful of others that have just gotten away from us, and so that's a little bit disappointing on the last year, because I so badly want to win and get us locked into the playoffs, and looking at the playoffs with the way that the rounds are set up and the tracks that are in it. I mean, there's a lot of high expectations, but you got to get there. And we haven't got there. And now I feel like, we're in that last 2 weeks, and we got to make it happen. And this is the first step to making it happen. I mean, there's a good chance I could be sitting here with you tomorrow night, and we're talking about being in the playoffs and having Watkins Glen in there, and having you go through the rounds, and all of a sudden this conversation changes. But it's racing, and we've seen the highs and lows of it, and I've been a part of the highs and lows of it. And so you just don't take it for granted. You enjoy the moment and the process, and, in 2 weeks we'll know.
We'll come over here to Jerry.
Jerry Jordan, Kicking the Tire Site. Now, you may not be able to answer this, but last week you didn't have the air jack system on the car. I don't know if do you have it this week? Do you know?
No.
Okay.
I do know, but yeah.
Okay. So one of the things I'll just ask you is, some teams that tried it, two or three of their cars did it, two cars didn't.
Yeah.
They were experimenting, and some said even that possibly for Daytona because of the weight on that. Do you think that there's that 1.5 pounds actually might give an advantage somehow, low downforce, or low center of gravity by that much?
Yes and no. I think weight always matters, so you're always trying to do as much as you can, and you don't want to put anything on your car that's heavy or unnecessary. But for us, more than anything, is just this is kind of the approach that we take. We'll let the big teams figure it out and spend the money first, and if they think it's good, then we'll add it. That's the nice thing about it not being mandatory. I mean, yes, it'd be unfortunate if you're sitting on 4 flat tires and you can't get back to the pits. But as you guys know, if that happens, you're pretty much done anyways. Even if you come out there and they jack you up and you drive back, you're still a lap or 2 down. And, so the probability of that being something that you need and it actually be effective, we'd rather watch and see if it's effective for other people first. And I think that's probably why you saw teams split it too, is they're doing the same process, but just doing it internally. Yep.
Are there any other questions for Michael? All right.
Thanks
Thanks for your
Appreciate
time.
it.
Good luck
Thanks.
tomorrow.
Thank you.